Today I'm going to try to draw this stone chapel in Nafplio, Greece, and this is up on the hill inside the Nafplio fortress. Nafplio, and who knows if I'm saying that right, is the oldest part of Nafplio and originally made up the entirety of the city. So before Nafplio expanded and became what it is today, it all fit within the walls of this fortress, which today is largely in ruin. The oldest fortifications date back to the Bronze Age, and there's also evidence of a settlement going all the way back to the Neolithic Age. Over the years, this area has really been put through the ringer. Multiple different civilizations have modified it over its history, including the Byzantines, Franks, and ultimately the Phoenicians. And eventually, it became a political prison before the Greek government realized that the view would be better appreciated by tourists than prisoners. So they built a hotel up here in the 60s, which has since been abandoned and left to decay. In its day, thanks to some archival photos that I found, I think it looked pretty cool, very modernist. But today, I really wish someone would do something with it because, in my opinion, it's ugly. It's an eyesore. You know what's not an eyesore? My channel. You should subscribe to it. No. I mean, yes, subscribe for sure, but that's not what I meant. It's, of course, this beautiful little church and its incredible setting. As you all know, I'm a big fan of drawing architecture, or at least including it to some extent in my drawing. And, churches are often some of the most beautiful architectural representatives, I guess, which is why I draw them with such frequency. And this one is no different. As luck would have it, it's also quite unique, and there are a few contextual elements for me to play with. So let's see how I do. As you can see, I started things off with what has become my least favorite thing to draw, and that's the stairs. They're awful. Maybe I'll talk about that more. Probably not, but maybe. Anyway, I started there because, as I'm sure you've heard me say, they're in the foreground. They are the closest thing to me, which means nothing else in the scene is overlapping with them. So, yep. For example, if I started where I kind of wanted to, which is that right archway, and specifically the pillar all the way to the right, I would eventually have to contend with the fact that the church sits behind the stairs, and I would have to draw them in, kind of unsure of how much space I've left for them. Make sense? I'm sure that it might. After the stairs, and thank God we're done with those for now, I do get to move on to the front of the church with these pillars and arches and what have you. And hey, it wasn't as good a time as I was expecting. In the moment, I didn't understand what I was doing wrong, but having sat down and really looked at it, I recognize now that I didn't draw the perspective correctly. How so, you might be asking? Well, the front of the chapel isn't facing toward me. You can see that you can see it pretty clearly in almost every conceivable way. But specifically, if I was trying to get into my own head while drawing, I'd say it's the inside of the arches, which you can only see on one side. It's the left side of the building that we can see, and not the right. And while I ultimately don't include the left side, I very clearly understand that I can see the inside of the arches, one side to be specific. So I know that this isn't facing directly toward me. I know it because of these tells, and I know it intuitively. And yet, I craft the shape of the arches themselves as though they're facing me head on. They're the same height. They share a very similar arc, and in the moment, I just didn't account for the fact that the arch on the right should be smaller than the one on the left, thanks to the perspective. Not dramatically smaller, but slightly. But I made mine a little larger, actually, so that's good and nice. This follows me all the way through the drawing. It messes with the rest of my proportions in ways I never really come to understand. And in my opinion, it makes this drawing weird and uncanny. And yeah, Like I fell asleep halfway through. I don't like it. But there's nothing for me to do about it now, so let's keep pushing. Even though the perspective with the arches got away from me, what gave me the most trouble was all of the different planes I had to deal with and how to shade said planes. I won't count them all out, but you have the front of the chapel with the arches, the entrance to the chapel, the inside of the arches, the inside of that back arch. You can see through the front arch, and so on. You get it. You know, it's still enjoyable. It's still a fun time. It's also like a puzzle that I could very well be messing up on video. And I'm never totally sure when or where that might be happening. Turns out it was a few times in a couple of different places, but whatever, it's fine. So yeah, then there was the shading, which is always a pain, and that's maybe the hardest puzzle of all, and the one that, unlike the others, where I pretty much have to draw a wall if it's there, I don't have to shade things. I can just leave this as a bunch of lines if I want to, and that's not necessarily wrong or bad, but I want to do my best. I want to learn, so I tend to dive into it with a bit more force, I guess, than I really want. You'll notice that I've drawn a lot of texture here, as this chapel is chock full of it. But then I noticed the difference in values from, say, the entrance to the ground or one side of the pillar to the other. That burrows into my head, and sometimes I can't ignore it, so I just can't not shade it in. However, due to this texture, I'm also not really sure how to blend those ideas. I've had equal measure success and failure in solving for this in the past, but honestly, it usually comes down to luck. So was I lucky today? I don't really think so. This one really flopped for me, in my opinion. And you know what's just the worst? The stairs are probably the best part of this drawing. Miraculously, these turned out pretty good, especially perspective-wise. And I don't know what to say about that. Maybe stairs aren't my nemesis after all. Probably not, though. So let me know what you think about this one. Subscribe to the channel, obviously, and like the video if you liked it. I appreciate you for taking the time to watch this one, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.